Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Institute of Hospitality's webinar for today. I'm Peter Ducker, I'm the Chief Executive of the Institute, and it's my pleasure to introduce the topic and the panel. Hayley, as you see, we've got a great panel with us today, and Hayley, I'm going to ask you to, sorry, I'm just trying to call things up. I'm going to ask you to introduce the panel one by one. I know that it's going to largely be a conversation between you, but I know that a lot of questions are going to come in from members whilst you're talking. So from time to time, I'll pop up back on the screen and lob in another question, and you can work out who you're going to burden with it. Okay. And the topic today is stepping up to the challenge of mass recruitment and onboarding, which is thank God we're there. We're getting there. We're recruiting again. We're looking at onboarding. We're looking at getting people who've been furloughed for longer than we care to think, actually back in, revved up, match fit, good to go, all of those things. And I can't wait to see it happen. I mean, if we'd been told a year ago that we'd be in this position by March 2021, I think we'd all have lynched ourselves, wouldn't we? But hey, we made it through. I'm sure there's going to be positive things that we think later on are the legacy of the pandemic, although I'm struggling to find too many at the moment. But hey, we're here. We're reopening over the next month or two. Things are moving, and hallelujah for that. So, Hayley, I'm going to hand over to you now. And as I say, I'll leave it to you to introduce your colleagues, and I'll be popping back in with questions shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got questions, use the device which is probably bottom right hand corner of your screen. However, if you're watching this after March the 16th, then I can't say we've all gone home because we're all at home, so but we're not online. So please send your questions in either to email addresses that pop up during the presentation if they do, or send them in to us at the Institute. We'll forward them on and make sure we get answers back to you. So if you're watching this as a stream from our website after the 16th of March, then send your questions in and we'll get them sorted for you. So great to see you all. Really looking forward to this and delighted that we're talking about onboarding people and getting going again. So Hayley, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very much appreciate being invited along here today and to talk with everybody and our wonderful panel. Just a little bit of background about myself. So Hayley Kyle, I'm the Customer Success Director UK for MAPAL Group, and specifically my background has been within the flow learning side of the business for the last 10 years. And I think I've said it before when I've been on some of these webinars, but I'm just born and bred hospitality. My parents owned hotels. I was raised in them. I think my first job at the age of 13 was cleaning the dishes and serving tea and toast in the morning. And throughout my years, I've always come back to being part of hospitality in anything that I've done. So whether it be in the bars or restaurants, and finally I was able and lucky enough to have an opportunity to work in a company such as Flow, where I get to still be part of it and help sort of create that future for everyone in the hospitality business when it comes to learning and sharing our wonderful world. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves because I feel like I would maybe not do them the proper level of introduction that they deserve. So I'm going to start with Bobby and I'll hand over to her now.
Hello everybody, I'm Bobby Davis, the Chief People Officer at Almarose Resorts and Hotels. I am very new to hospitality. This is my first hospitality job and I arrived in July 2019 thinking that I wanted to do something different, having absolutely no idea that we were going to be kicking into a global pandemic not long afterwards. So I'd done quite a lot of visits around the hotels. Many moons ago, I was in the military, and I have said a lot of time that the reason that I now love hospitality, even though I have done it virtually for a year, is that it feels like coming home back into the army because of the team spirit, the types of people that we are actually recruiting, and just that wholesome approach to people actually wanting to smile at you and really wanting to do the best by the customer. So I'm absolutely loving it, even though it's been virtually, and I cannot wait to be back out around our portfolio again.
That's amazing. There's a similarity, isn't there, Bobby? That sort of like, I like to think a good service has a bit of a military precision about it. So you've got to make sure you're all on board, you know what you're doing, and everyone around you is working together. So I love that that relationship between them both for you. That's great. James Nye, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm James Nye. I'm Managing Director of Anglian Country Inns. We run gastropubs with rooms and hotels and restaurants across Hertfordshire and Norfolk. Very similar to you, Hayley, I started off in my dad's first pub 25 years ago and worked my way up. It's a family business, so I've sort of gone through from pot wash to MD. And yeah, we've got 9 sites now, sort of mainly food-led. That's where we specialise. But yeah, very much looking forward to getting the doors open again, seeing lots of happy customers and happy staff back in the buildings, and getting the engine fired up again.
Brilliant, excellent. I love again just the sort of the relationship of having been the pot wash to the MD. There's nothing you can ask someone to do that you've not done yourself, right?
Yeah, it's been an experience.
Perfect. And James Godwin, sorry, pronounced that wrong.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm James Godwin. I'm the Resources and Administration Director for Harbour Hotels. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I've also been in hospitality my entire career. I seem to remember washing dishes aged 14, 15, worked in operations up until about 7 or 8 years ago when I switched over into the exciting world of L&D and HR. And now I'm really interested and very, very passionate about all things people related. And I think that's the wonderful thing that we're going to be talking about today. I'm actually very excited to be so focused on the people element of the business. Obviously, there's lots and lots of things that go into making businesses successful, but quite simply, without our wonderful people, we've got nothing. So yeah, very, very excited to be here today.
Fantastic, I love that, James. And finally, last but no means least, Gavin Smith, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Hayley. Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Gavin Smith. I'm Managing Director of Pizza Pilgrims. Broken record again. My background stems from washing dishes in a pub in the Lake District when I was about to go off to university to read history. I remember going home to my father, and Bobby, you'll relate to this. My father was 32 years in the army, and telling him that I wasn't going to university, but I wanted to be a chef. And I remember the look on his face as if it was today, but he just told me in the most clear fashion, make sure you're a good one, son. And I was fortunate enough then and through my sort of 20 years in the industry to work for some pretty amazing places, pretty exciting brands, and been fortunate enough to get, you know, a group of people around me where I've been developed and they've been developed. But I think just like everybody here, I'm very excited about the opportunity to get the restaurants open again. We've got 15 pizzerias, 14 of which are in London, 1 in Oxford. And we've got a business which is largely pizzerias, but an at-home pizza in the post business now, who knew? And a brand that we've developed in lockdown called Slice. So yeah, very much on the front foot with recruitment. And the difference I think between us and some other businesses, we haven't closed. So that in many ways, that's been a real win for us to keep our momentum. But so it's nice to speak with you all.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Well, I love that, Bobby, you are the odd one out here. You've not done the pot washing since you were 13. Maybe you did, though.
I don't wash up at home either. So, you know, I really feel completely out of my depth now all of a sudden, but there we go.
Back to the floor.
It's amazing though that we all just share like so many similarities, and I think that's the reason that we wanted to have you all as panelists and on this discussion today. Just knowing your backgrounds and your position in the businesses that you operate, we know that at the top there are people that just genuinely care. This is so important that we get this right. We've all had such a difficult year, and as Peter rightly called out, we're at that final stretch. We're at the point where we can make all of this, hopefully at some point soon, become a bit of a distant memory. I think that what will be interesting when we discuss some of the topics today is there will be some nice positives to take away from it. I think we've all learned that there are things that we could do differently and better. And even to Gav, to your point about how you've made your business still successful in these times, you diversified, you found a way to still create an offering for your customers. we've all managed to do things slightly differently. So we'll talk about some of the positives. We all know about the negatives. We probably don't need to go into them in too much details, but yeah, today's focus needs to be about how we get ourselves back to everyone just loving hospitality, welcoming our people back first, and then our customers into just that environment that we all love and enjoy so much. So probably one of the best places to start is just touching on, like, how do we get from here to whatever date in your business is your opening. So I know we've got some variances depending on outdoor space and the styles of businesses that you offer, but what are your current recruitment plans, and how do you want to position your business to attract the best people? And is it going to be made up of a lot of previous employees that you had before? So not to pick on everyone, and this is where I'm going to get myself in trouble, so I want to put you two on the spot, but you know what, James Godwin, I'm going to go with you first.
Well, you've asked obviously multiple part question there, so I'll do my very best to cover that all off. I think that for us at the moment, we're closed. We have dabbled with some takeaway business in elements, but fundamentally what we do is luxury lifestyle hotels. It is very destination led. Over half of the business is coastal. In terms of the recruitment plan, you know, we entered into the lockdown with the goal of really trying to ensure that people would have jobs to come back to and come, you know, when we come out of the lockdown, not knowing how long we were going to be closed for. And that's very much still the current thinking. If you look on our careers page, you know, we've got currently about 75 vacancies open now because we are already planning to have those people on board. I think that number will go up. I think that that'll be 150 by the time we get to perhaps April, May. And then I'd like to think that number will come down as we obviously take people on. But the total number of people to come on board is probably 15% of our entire workforce. So there is quite a lot of work to do. In terms of our approach, we're very much an operator-led recruitment process. We don't have a big recruitment team. In fact, we don't have a recruitment team. It is done by the operators and supported by our support office. And that's really the starting point. But the starting point has already happened. You know, that sort of first lockdown, planning the reopening. I remember being asked 4 months in after the first lockdown, so 4 months after March of last year, you know, what we were doing, and I didn't know that 8 months time we would still be talking about how we're coming out of lockdown. So we've had to adapt and change as we've gone through, and I'm sure some of those things will come out today.
Yeah, Bobby, do you have anything to add to what James has said so far?
Yeah, I think in a similar vein, we've had many of our teams on furlough, and we did have to go through restructuring last year. However, the way that we decided to approach that was we had over 1,100 in consultation virtually, but 700 of those people actually retained their jobs, because what we managed to do with them was negotiate on hours, etc., or in the case of that they would be back in the summer, they may well then be back on furlough, but retaining their commitment. And there's many of those. I mean, of course, there are those who've gone off and got different jobs, etc., but many of them are going to be coming back to us. And then the other element that we've done is that, having gone through some workforce planning pieces with every single hotel about what does your optimum plan look like, and what can we do right now depending on what our occupancy looks like across the different services that we've got, as well as the accommodation. We already know our resourcing plan for the next 12 months. So currently where the vacancies actually are, where those people are coming back, but we should be able to ratchet up their hours as the guests come back, so that we can actually get them back up to 40 hours where they actually want to. We've done redeployment as well, so that it's very much a case of where the recruitment is, we can phase that back in. So quite again, similar to what James is saying, we've been doing so much prior to this, we feel quite prepared for what's coming next.
Yeah. And James and I, do you have anything slightly different, or is it a similar story for yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, we echo that. This isn't just something we're thinking about now. This is something we've been been really conscious of really from the first lockdown. we've pretty much furloughed the entire workforce, and we've actually got more people on our books now than we did when we furloughed everyone at the beginning of March last time. We lost a couple, unfortunately, but the majority we've preserved, and again we're trying to look after them, and we have been throughout lockdown. I think that's been big focus of ours, so that when we do come out of this side, that they are engaged and know what's happening, they still feel part of the business. We're a relatively seasonal business, so we do sort of need more staff for the summer, so this is a sort of a natural ramp up. I think what we realised is that there was going to be this bit of sort of glut of recruitment coming, so especially for our sites up in Norfolk where they're very tourist driven. We started this probably about 4 weeks ago and got the recruitment ads out then, just to try and get ahead of the curve, because we felt that there was going to be a lot of demand for staff.
Yep. And then Gavin, not coming to you last for any reason, but you are in that slightly different position, right? You've had people working for you continually, but obviously still probably a reduced number. So where are you at with the recruitment needs in the business?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and definitely echo the comments of the other guys. We've got sort of 9 sites operating on Deliveroo and with click and collect, and that has been throughout lockdown, with the exception of the 2 weeks of madness in March last year where our teams were scared, where we just said, look, let's close. And then as and when that conversation changed, we reopened them. But we've had that, and that's been strong. Certainly in sort of sales terms, it's been, nearly 35% of the revenue we would have expected before in total. And Pizza in the Post has just grown way beyond our expectations in every way, really. And that's meant we could redeploy. We've got around 40 of our team in there at the moment from various pizzeria locations. They're all actually right now transitioning back to their pizzerias, ready for the reopening, which for us is most of which will open in some way, shape or form next month. And then the remainder will open in May. But I think perhaps mirroring what the guys said, we were really quite nervous about the problems that Brexit would bring. So rather than seeing that as a problem, we got on the front foot sort of 18 months ago, and we built an academy in Camden, which is kind of a part-time pizzeria, part-time school. And its manifesto is more than just train and recruit and induct on board. It's about how do we educate and inspire both our current population and the future. And that's been really helpful to us, because it's enabled us to be very much ahead of the game and make sure we bring in the right people and set the right expectations of them. And it actually opened. The opening party was the night before lockdown. I mean, I almost thought it was our fault. So it's so nice now to see the team in Camden, actually putting people through the academy and training people for its very purpose. But it's not lost on me the size of the challenge here. I think we're about to embark on, as an industry, maybe the most difficult time in 25 years to recruit talent and to keep talent. I mean, in both the sort of macro pressures of millennials and how they might want to work, but also the fact that we have got less people traveling to work here. And I think from our perspective, almost 90% of our chef population were Neapolitan men. And that's huge. A lot of those have gone back. Like, we still have a Neapolitan kitchen brigade in every pizzeria, but a lot of people have returned home and probably won't come back.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge for us is not to just expect that to return. How can we adopt different ways of thinking and really try and do something meaningful? Because I think we've all talked about it. I have throughout my whole career, but I can't tell you that it's changed massively. And what I'd really love to see is more like, how did John Lewis attract so many retired people? How did Timpson attract so many ex-offenders? Why haven't we got more women in kitchens? Are we represented from a diversity perspective in all areas? And we're really working hard on that. At the moment, it's working, Hayley. My head of people actually is Hayley.
Oh, that's a name to remember them.
She lives for the academy, and it's too early to say where we're going to be, but I think the real challenge might come next year. I think it sounds like all the guys on today's call are very much ahead of the curve, and we feel the same. But as tourists return, as people return to offices at whatever level, I think we might find that our industry is, we're going to see a challenge like we haven't seen in many, many years. But let's use it as an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything you said would be valid for all of us. And one of the things I wondered, again, to get some of your input on from each of you would be just about this retaining talent. I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago where we talked about some survey results, and it just looked at I suppose it's a bit dog eat dog right now. You've got the employees have the luxury of seeing that there are lots of jobs available. Obviously coming out of a period where they had nothing or they were on furlough, but now they're looking for opportunities and they can see lots, and that advert to draw them in has to be like absolutely enticing them. It's got to meet their needs. But to touch on some of your comments there, Gavin, you've got this balance now of like maybe the mindset of millennials. People maybe want to have a little bit more of that work-life balance, and we've seen this before within hospitality. So maybe if I can go to James and I on this one first, what is it that you think you're able to offer that would retain the people that you're going to bring on? Because you're going to put a lot of time and effort into the next, say, 2-3 months. You've already started it in training everyone up. And every business's nightmare is to lose those people, right? So how do you hold on to them?
Yeah, look, I think this has been a real key topic of conversation for us. And I think what we're realizing is it's not just about getting them restarted now. We're trying to look forward 3 months. You know, when we went into the second lockdown in October, you know, our teams were on the verge of burnout because it was kind of survival mode from July to October. We all came back into it. We didn't really know what was lying ahead of us. We knew that times were pretty critical and we had to do as much as we could with as little as we could. And lo and behold, we locked down twice again. And I think the difference here is we're going to be coming out of this lockdown, and it's going to be a one-way ticket. You know, if Mr. Johnson is correct with his prediction, and I think it is, because we've got the vaccine, and I think that we are going back into continual trade. So we're trying to talk to our teams now about looking forward 3 months. What can we do in that space to make sure that people are not burning out? Because we know it's going to be busy. We know there's going to be this big boom coming back into the sector. Yeah, we've got sites up in Norfolk that's, I think, you know, domestic tourism is going to be absolutely rife this year, and probably for another 24 months you're going to see this boom. So we're trying to think about how can we create sort of a sustainable working for our teams. And again, it's trying to avoid the long hours. It's trying to sort of take preemptive action now rather than reactive action to make sure that our teams can sustain a healthy level of work each week. Yeah, we look after them as well. We try and, I think what we've done is communicate, and I think that's really important to your teams, that you're actually sharing what you're trying to do for them and sort of getting the front foot with your internal communications. So yeah, we've got good supply, good staff benefits and looking after them, and just trying to actually sort of share that. And I think it's not just what's in it for them, but we've got some altruistic benefits. So we have something called a Live Your Life Day, where any of our team can take a paid day off to go and raise money for charity. And again, it's kind of tapping into some of these sort of above and beyond bits and pieces that show that we care not just about them, but about the sort of the wider picture. So yeah, look, I think the hardest thing is we've been effectively 6 months, if you discount the two or 3 weeks trading around Christmas, 6 months in lockdown. Yeah, when I go around and talk to the staff at the moment, I feel a real sense of excitement, and actually everyone's really looking forward to get back into it. And I think what we've got to be careful of is just that is sustained throughout the next 3 months, and actually we're taking measures now to make sure that's you know, a sustainable working environment, rather than just overloading them and getting as much out of them as we can, and treat them for the long term rather than just the next 2 or 3 months.
Absolutely. And Bobby, just maybe tying on from that then, do you think that you might see a mix between people maybe being a bit more cross-trained, so being able to do multi-roles, so that they're not just focusing on one role within the business, which allows them that flexibility on different hours, maybe whether it's to fit around their lifestyle, childcare, those types of things? And second part to that would be, do you then envisage hiring maybe more people to do less hours?
So the first bit, absolutely. So when we were looking at our structures last year, it was clear that not exactly silo, but very functional. And there were those people that potentially at that point in time may well have only wanted to do shifts on a particular day, et cetera, and we were trying to be able to cater for that on shorter hours or however that might be, and negotiating on that. But also, what could we do with those who actually quite like the idea of being multifaceted and moving from the bar to the restaurant to the front of house or whatever? And that's what we've done. So we did that with our skeleton teams first. Flexi furlough really helped with that, because then we could rotate people in. so that they could learn new things, and that's what we're going to continue. So the pre-opening piece is going to be allowing for people to try things that they haven't done before, as well as learning from those who've always done that. And then we get back into the, now let's take a look at your hours. Are you now comfortable that you've got 2 jobs and you only want to give me 20 because you quite like the versatility of going and doing something else? Or do you want more? And we can build from that. So although we need to be competitive in the market, I think our focus right now really is quite a new brand from when the hotels were sold and where we are now, is to really be investing in the people that have come all of this way with us and beyond from that. And similarly to what James is saying, when we were open in the summer, the number of people I saw who were just like, I cannot tell you how pleased I am to be back at work. It made me feel a little bit humble when I thought how shattered I was, having been in, but not realizing quite what it was like from the other side, to actually beginning to blend those things together and allowing them to be multifaceted, I think is good, as well as this versatility about the hours that people can work.
Yeah, perfect. And James Goodman, sorry, I said that wrong again. Godwin. I don't know why I'm getting that wrong today. I'm sorry. Do you think that there is anything that maybe worries people about hospitality? Obviously, this has been a really difficult 12 months. We don't need to get into that. But do you think there's a nervousness even for team members, bearing in mind we're still going to have a number of months where there's distancing in place and a lot of precaution to make sure we keep everyone safe? What are your thoughts on that as an operator?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and one of the things that we focused very much on back in May, June time last year, about what impact are the changes going to have on our operations. You know, we all know what hospitality looks like in the pre-COVID world. What does hospitality look and feel like in the post-COVID world, where there's either an expectation or sort of a social norm thing that means things are different? What is different? What is it that's different? And the same has got to be applied to the team members, listening to their concerns, anxieties, challenges that people may have. And we were very open and wanted people's feedback around our COVID controls and our measures, and we utilised our team a lot in sort of creating our own ways of working in that place, and that will continue. That will now continue since then to now and onwards into the months ahead. But I think it's really important. I mean, some people are going to be less concerned about it, and I think the flip for me, and certainly in discussions with some team members, is around skills fade. I mean, we do have one property which hasn't opened since March of last year, so they've remained shut right the way through. So by the time they reopen, it'll be 15 months, and there'll be a core of 30 or 40 people that actually haven't worked, or certainly not worked for us in their normal roles. And that's a concern as well. Not just skill fade, but perhaps confidence issue, or you know, their interactions with other people again. You know, and I think that's got to be looked at without a doubt. And we certainly are, and it's something that we've got a couple of programs on at the moment. But you know, those managers are going to come back to work and have teams who may be different in themselves, and that's really got to be a focus for us all.
I suppose to add to that then is that, again, how do you all make sure that you get that culture fit right? Okay, because you've got lots of people that have never worked for you, and this ties back into your training and recruitment right now. I mean, Gavin, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, as to how do you make sure you get people to very quickly embrace what it is to be part of Pizza Pilgrims in your business?
Sure, yeah, I mean, it's fundamental, isn't it? I think, to build on what James was saying, actually, that, you know, the old Jim Sullivan notion of recruiting your team daily is something which we thought about, because ultimately, yes, we're open now on delivery and click and collect, so people are able to retain hours, etc. But the managers are like scratching the walls with the excitement for greeting a guest again. And what we're doing at the moment is re-recruiting the team and retraining the team. When we open, we're launching a new menu. So rather than just saying, oh, let's see what happens, really give people a unique reason to visit. Yeah, for sure. But also for our teams, give them something interesting to get excited about. So really that notion of re-recruiting our team, because they're our core talent and we don't want to lose them, and developing those people. But also, you know, hospitality at its very core, I think, was challenged post lockdown 1. And I don't know what your own personal experiences were, but I obviously eat and drink out as much as anyone in our industry. who loves to, because we're hospitality animals at our very core. But I felt in many cases, and the bigger the business, sometimes what I observed was we were getting overpowered and overwhelmed by the control and the COVID rules and regulations, which, to be very clear, are super important. We had pay at table, order at table software, sanitizer, all this kind of thing. But I felt like, in general, in the industry, in my experience in the summer, there was a lack of hospitality versus 2019. And it was something which myself and our founders chatted about a lot. And we're like, my God, like, this is dangerous, because the reason people come out to a pub, a restaurant, a hotel, a cafe is to have an experience. They don't need to do it. And I think coupling that kind of re-recruiting of the team with what is our core purpose, and ours is about happiness. It's about community, and it's about making sure people feel welcome when they're in, as if it was your granny. And I think we're dialing back, actually. We still got all the order at table, pay at table. If you want to come and have a frictionless experience, then yes, I understand, please do. But we really want to get that interaction back. We want to talk about the new pizzas. We want to talk about, the matters of the day with a customer. But as I think your question was more directly around culture, and I think culture is what we do. Like, we can talk about a culture map and we can plot it, but culture is what we do and what we walk every day. And I think for me, it's about making the teams feel comfortable. In the first 2 weeks of lockdown, I think everyone was worried about, how do I get to work on a tube? And today it's like, dear God, I haven't earned any money or any tips for a year, barring 3-4 months. This is a disaster. So I think it's about giving those guys a path to have financial security and emotional security. And I'm sure it's something which is prevalent across the group. But we've reached out via a couple of communication tools. We introduced Facebook Workplace, which has been really useful for us to talk to people like this, I guess, through lockdown. And we've had there's quite a lot of people, I think, have been, have mental issues with lockdown. And I know we all talk about it, but it may be as simple as, I just feel a bit alone. It may be as complicated as something way more complicated than that. But what it's been really eye-opening for me is to give a voice to those people, and then creating a culture, actually, that through lockdown, talk about it, let us know what your problems are, and let's see where we can help. And I think, organizations like Hospitality in Action have been brilliant. Going into the new world, and positively speaking, I think we've got to create a culture that we've all grown up in hospitality. And Bobby talked earlier about, actually she's military and hospitality. Well, actually, the military is built on team, and it's built on fellowship and support for each other. And I think they're, for me, the things which I love working in this industry because of those things. And, it's a long answer, I suppose, Haley, but
Perfect answer.
I think the culture can be enhanced now, but we've really got to be aware of it, because there's this moment in time where people will expect that, I think.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking of a couple of things that you said there, which are really interesting, but going back to just the culture part, do you think, and maybe James and I'll aim this one at yourself just now, but do you think you're going to see the workforce, the pool of the workforce that you're going to be attracting from, be a lot more diverse than it ever was before as well? And it's something that Gavin touched on. Are we going to see people leaving industries such as care, because they've had, as much as they've not ever stopped, they have had a very tough ride of it? And so are we going to see people who are still very people service focused moving into our industry? And do you think that will create any challenges or real positives out of that as well?
Yeah, I do. We've got a few sites in Hertfordshire, and Luton Airport's not too far away. And, we've seen a big influx of cabin crew. And actually, they're coming in, they're service orientated, they know how to handle difficult hours and customers. And so I think, it's going to be a case of redeployment. And there are cases that will go the other way. I think Brexit's going to put pressure on a lot of European workforce. So I think it's a balance of both of those, but it's not one or the other. I think there will be opportunities out there, and I think people will look at hospitality. I think the whole thing about COVID, it's restricted our movement, but also it's made us more flexible at the same time. You look at the working from home market. I think people will pick and choose when they want to work a bit more, and what better industry to do that? We don't operate 9 to 5; we operate 24/7. So we can sort of be flexible with people's hours, and we can accommodate sort of flexi work patterns. And I think if we can embrace this, it's going to help attract people to hospitality. I think we're starting to shrug off some of the stigma of hospitality being this, stuck in a kitchen with chefs shouting, the whole Gordon Ramsay image, in inverted commas. We're moving to a much more sort of egalitarian, fair workplace. And I think that's only going to be a positive thing for hospitality. I mean, we're starting to attract a slightly older workforce. It's not just young kids. I'll be doing some work on looking at our workforce, and actually we are sort of looking at a slightly older average working age for us, which is great. And I think if we can be that sort of more welcoming employer, and I think that there are going to be a lot of opportunities that come up, that things we hadn't thought about before are going to present themselves. And I think the whole episode of COVID has really seismically moved the foundations, and we'll be able to sort of whether it's pizzas at home, DIY pizza at home, or recruiting new sort of cabin crew or care home workers who want to change. I can't tell you what they're going to be, but all we're doing is keeping our eyes open and being aware for these trends that are coming out of it, so that we can capitalize on them and hopefully benefit from them for the long term.
Perfect. James, Godwin, do you have anything similar to add to any of those points from your side?
No, I mean, I'm in complete agreement. We've noticed an increase in applicants from the cruise industry sector. That was one sector. We've got a property in Southampton, obviously major cruise ports, and there's obviously some very fantastic people. And I think you're right. It is about keeping your eyes open for that talent that can join the existing teams and make a good marry up. But no, I think James has boxed that one.
Perfect. So maybe if we can even just focus a little bit on the actual training needs itself. What can you do in this timescale? Because we're tight for time, right? If we're looking at April as a potential opening date, especially for outside areas, what is it that your businesses have been able to do right now and will continue to do? Because obviously training is not just a once-off tick box exercise and suddenly you're equipped with everything you need to know. It's ongoing. So Bobby, what is it that you and your teams have been doing to make sure that that is a sort of an ongoing process and it's digestible, I suppose, because it can be quite a lot to take on board, right?
Oh, for sure. So we've done a number of things. So we actually, I'm going to start with a sort of the very important piece around compliance, but we started there to make sure that everybody was up to date. But it wasn't just about doing the compliance training. It was very much an engagement piece, because that's where we started to open up to see whether people were really going to come back to us or not. And then we were able to have the open conversations with them about, was their preference to be with the second job that they'd managed to take on, not necessarily looking at them doing that straight away, but knowing where we were at so that we knew what resource pool we got coming back. So that's where we started from. A point that we were talking about from the culture piece, if I may as well, just adding into that one of the questions that we actually started to ask on our management conversations that we've been having across the piece all the way through this is, what have you been learning whilst you haven't been at work? Because it's so clear that whilst they may well be lacking in confidence or whatever it might be about coming back into this workplace, they have got stuff in spades to come back that we will be able to make use of with whatever they've been up to. So that's sort of enabled a little bit to say it's not going to be that much of a gaping void when you return. And then as of today, I've got team members actually collecting collateral. So we've got cook-offs going on to actually start photographing all of the new menus and video takes as well. We've then got a session across virtual discussions with different groups, be it the head chefs or the F&B managers or whatever it might be, actually already scheduled in, so they can start talking about the content, about what is it that they're really either concerned about, that they need to know about prior to coming back in. And then we've started on these pre-opening week training plans, where some of it is about reconnecting and other parts of it is about work ready. So there's the checklist piece to it, but the reconnection is very much about how you reconnect with your team. What is it that they think about the guest experience, and very much that point of that we're naturally adapting to COVID hasn't gone, but now we don't want footprints and it all in your face too much. It's got to be there, visibility of cleanliness, but people are wanting the guest experience and to be made to feel that they've actually come to something different. So those are the sort of the aspects of it, but it's very much a a build that we've been working on starting from now. We actually think that with those sort of conversations before we get back into face-to-face, we're going to start be able to be engaging with people and getting them into the mix and the way of feeling, as well as, can you please go and put on your uniform and make sure it still fits?
Yeah, the essentials, right?
I thought we might start with that.
And Gavin, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, but maybe just to follow on, another thought process for you here would be in touching on what Bobby said about that guest experience. Do you think, and I mean, I've got my own head in here, like this, my thought process with this, have I got the same expectations I always had with hospitality, or do you think customers will have a higher expectation? Because if they've had, say, nearly a year of not being able to enjoy themselves in the normal way, and they've maybe got a big night out to plan to meet up with whoever it might be, do you think it's going to have, we're going to have more of a challenge to meet those expectations?
Yes and no. I mean, I've always had very high expectations when it comes to, you know, how we deliver hospitality, and it's just the simple things, really. I mean, we've layered training in there around, to Bobby's point, we're doing the same with menu cook-offs at the moment. We've got all sorts of web-based and face-to-face training in the pizzerias before they open. But I think most importantly, I want people to feel like that they can just deliver hospitality. Do we have anything? Do I believe the expectations have changed? I actually think conversely, from conversations with many of my friends, people are so desperate to go and enjoy an experience, have a pint or a glass of wine with their friends. I think they do it anywhere.
How or where, yeah.
Yeah. But I've been using the word carnival for the last 2 months. I think my team are getting bored of it, but I think there's a carnival coming in this country in the summer. You've got Euros, you've got the Olympic Games, you've got warm weather and festivals returning. I think there'll be a real momentum, almost like London 2012 feel to hospitality for the first 3 months. I think then the reality will hit. You know, there's still lack of surety around jobs and ability to buy homes and all of that horrible stuff. So I think actually the autumn to the spring might be a really difficult time, because will people book in such numbers for Christmas? Will the corporate side of the business be there? What happens in January, February when we get the traditional lull? But I think what we've then got is the opportunity. Let's just stand out from the crowd. And it's not, I think our industry, for me, for the first time in my life, has come together in a way that I've never seen it. And I think it's just brilliant. Really, really brilliant. James touched on it earlier, but we are the whipping boys for government. We have a lobby, but maybe not the same lobby as certain industries. I feel like we've really gained some traction through these last 12 months, and we must hold that core and keep it positive. I was really concerned last summer, when you may have seen it, when certain operators were talking about the 1 person in 100 that never showed up for a reservation. And I appreciate that's a problem, but call them, find a way, but embrace the fact that people want to use your restaurant. So for me, it's about really putting our arms around our guests and loving them as much as our team. And hopefully then making them feel like they want to use their local pub or hotel, restaurant more than they did before, because I think there's been a fundamental shift in what people took for granted. And maybe it's not about where any of us work or the businesses we operate. Maybe it's just about the occasion and that notion of hospitality, that you haven't seen someone, and how many Zoom quizzes can anyone do? So I think there's a bit of both, Hayley, it would be my view. But if we keep it to the core values of great hospitality and making people feel better when they left than when they arrive, I think we'll be in a good place.
Yeah. And it just is kind of, I suppose, down to all of us, right, to shout loudly about all the successes and the amazing things that we've done, because as we know, given the opportunity, there can be a negative slant put on it, in particular with the press. And I think there was an explosion at the weekend on Twitter about the furlough situation. Did anyone pick up on that, where the negativity was like, oh, you've had all these people on furlough, and now what's going to stop them from resigning? And I feel like it's easy to put that in the sort of social element and make that seem like a real negative, but we have so many positives to talk about. I mean, James and I, do you have any kind of like top tips on how we make sure that we continue this buzz? Because we've been doing our absolute best at it. How do we remember that we can't all just suddenly get our heads in the sand, go back to our day-to-day and stop working together?
Yeah, no, first of all, Gavin, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think there's going to be just a natural desire for people to want to go out, and yeah, we saw it last time that actually they're happy to sit outside or sit with a screen next to them because they just want to be out. And yeah, we're calling it the forgiveness factor, and I think it'll probably be around for a couple of months when people get used to coming back. So I think to begin with, there's actually going to be less demand on us to be perfect, and people just be happy to be out. And we had such positive feedback when we threw our doors open. There's always one person who whines and moans, but there's 999 others who are having a great time. So first of all, I think there's going to be a really good atmosphere for hospitality. This idea of a carnival in the summer is a lovely way to put it. And then I think
that sounds fun, by the way.
I think as people, I think that people are connecting more with their locals as well. They haven't been able to go into work, they haven't been able to go to the city. So I think there's perhaps an enhanced connection with their local hostelry, and so I think people are just thinking on that sort of individual level of my local. So I think that's going to be going well. Complacency is our biggest enemy, especially around safety, because it's not all about safety, it's about the environment. But if it's not safe, I think that that will where people will pick you up on. So it has to be there, even though you're not going to get points for having it there. You will get points if it's taken away if it's not there, if that makes sense. So we are going to be safe. But as it builds up and builds up, you're right, hospitality has been at the forefront of this. And every time you hear one of the government ministers talking, they talk about hospitality and how it suffers. So I think people have a much deeper respect for hospitality going into COVID. So I think as an industry we've come out of this probably stronger. And I think that the trick is now just to keep that going. So look, you're going to get a reporter finding some pub somewhere that's broken the rules and done it wrong. But actually there's 101 other. And also look at the economy. From an economic perspective, pubs and restaurants, hotels are going to be turning on the tap for recovering taxes for the government. So we've got a great lobby group in UK hospitality, in the BII and BBPA, and I think they are really carrying a positive message to ministers that what we're doing is great. And I think also when you hear you see people like Peter Borgnir on Question Time, and you're starting to see Alex Riley and these sort of celebrities of the industry coming through, and not just your sort of big top chef recognized. The actual the big guys who are doing this on a really big corporate level coming through as recognized voice. And pubs are safe. Look at what Hugh Osmond's talking around at the moment about why can't we go back when non-essential retail goes back, because we're far safer than non-essential retail to go back to. And all of a sudden it just takes a few of these sort of public pieces to come forward as hospitality being the answer, not the problem. And I think it'll gain that sort of perspective, that position in people's minds that it's a safe place to be.
Yeah, it's a really true point there. Does anyone have anything to add to that? I'm not going to target anyone.
I think that was well said. The only way I can liken that is I feel like the NHS has had such an amazing shot in the arm of PR the last 12 months, although it must have been terribly demanding for those people working in the NHS. I think it's been brilliant for the public opinion. I think hospitality has the opportunity to do the same, and we must deliver against that, right? So the hospitality is an absolute non-negotiable. I guess the concern I have, maybe some operators might get greedy on price and use what's happened the last 12 months as a reason for that. We still have to maintain value while delivering all the things we've just talked about. But I guess my summary on it is, the very fact that the Institute of Hospitality, for me, if we can do that, we all know the product works when we deliver it with a smile and a great member of staff. Our commitment isn't just to the customer. I think it's also to our teams. And let's not forget how many people have had a very difficult 12 months, and now we can get to change their lives in a positive way. I think it's amazingly exciting.
Yeah. Peter, I see you're back, and I feel like that might.
I've been loving the conversation, but the questions have been piling in, so I thought I'd better chip in because time moves on.
Perfect.
You want to pass this one too, but it seems like a perfect storm: Brexit plus pandemic plus aging population plus Gen Z, who are motivated by very different things and don't seem as attracted as younger generation used to be to come into work in their industry. And then we're interested in different things, purpose, sustainability, diversity, etc. How do you plan to attract and engage both clients and staff in this new culture?
I mean, I think it's an opportunity, Peter. I really do. I do accept that, you know, millennials, and let's not get too, you know, millennials can be what, 42, 44 years old, something like that.
I'm a millennial.
I fall into millennials.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm
outside
keeping
of
very
that.
quiet.
I think I agree. You know, maybe the status quo of a baby boomer and the clarity they needed, and that management versus more flexible style of working is more relevant, but that's good. I think what we've got, I mean, we look at some of our pizzerias and the way the sales come in across the week or across the month. Maybe the opportunity for us is not to employ so many full-time and more part-time people, as an example, and make sure that, you know, actually we had a goal a couple of years ago where everyone works 4 days. And it was, you know, something we were really into for 3 months, and we built the plan. But actually, when you talk to the teams, like, I don't want to work 5 days. I have 4 days. I'd like to work 5 days, but some people might want 3. So I think it's about us using our ears as much as our mouth and being a bit more flexible. And the purpose is important. I mean, when we talk about happiness, we mean it. And, you know, we do lots of things to have fun, and some of it is frivolous and some of it is meaningful. But I think consistently listening. And actually, one of the things that may be a good example is we've got a lot of guys and girls in the team who their hobbies they bring to life in work. We've got one of our managers is a DJ, and he now and again we'll do that in a business. We sent him down to do it in Pizza in the Post. But we've got one guy who's a photographer. He was doing that at university. He's now a manager for us, but he still does the photography and helps us with some of our menu work. But I think that work-life interchangeability, I think, is a huge opportunity. If you get scared by it, then perhaps it will become a problem, Peter. But I'm learning every day, and I'm just trying to take the consensus message from the team. And if they need more of something, and that's more voices than not, they're probably right and I'm wrong. So we need to listen, I think.
Good. Yeah. Anybody got anything to add to that? That was a great answer there, Gavin. Thank you. But
I'll just talk a bit about sustainability. You know, I think you know, it's becoming more and more apparent that sustainability is important, and you know, especially with Gen Z and millennials who are probably identifying more with it. You know, we're fortunate we do a lot of work on that. We're actually going through looking at B Corp status. We did a sustainability review on our business during lockdown. And a lot of what we do, I think we scored like 75–80% already without actually trying to be more sustainable. So, you know, a lot of the practices we've got in, a lot of what we do is there already. So, you know, our industry has a great opportunity to become more sustainable, which actually will improve the bottom line, improve the longevity of staff with us. Because a lot of it it's not just environmentalism, it's actually around looking after your people as well. So, you know, this concept of sustainability is not just about reducing plastic and you know, saving the ice caps. It's actually about making sure you're looking after your staff in the long term. So I think the more we become a sustainable business, the more we will look after Gen Zs and millennials, and more we will appeal to them. So, you know, I don't think we should do it for the sake of doing it. We should do it because it actually benefits our business. And you know, I think it's a bit like the internet. You know, 10 years ago, having internet in your pub was a bonus. It was oh, that's nice. But I think now everyone expects you to have internet in your pub or your restaurant. And it's the same about sustainability. It's nice to be doing it at the moment, but if you're not a sustainable company in 10 years' time, you're going to be caught behind. And so, you know, we're starting to heavily invest in that now.
You know, James, just to follow up on that, I was part of a conversation last week where they were talking about what, you know, a new Gen Z audience might want, might not want. And in terms of the sustainability, you know, there was a similar chat around this being wider than just environmentalism, and that maybe our attitude to people working in a job will change, and that actually maybe they'll always have 2 jobs. That's just the thing. And we can lean into that, right? Because I think hospitality offers that unique opportunity. You know, you can't necessarily do that in all professions. And I think I wonder how we can adapt and how fast we can adapt in order to embrace that, because I think it's still quite scary to a lot of people at our businesses, because, oh, well, we're not their primary focus. But actually, you know, if in London, I remember years ago when we were recruiting, we would use Stage magazine because we actively wanted out of work actors and actresses, but they had such an incredible story to tell, and, you know, confidence that used to make me sick, that we're a valued member of the team. So maybe it's about how we bring the two together. And I think there is definitely that opportunity. It's just going to take some time.
Brilliant. Can I ask another question while I'm here? With the extension of the furlough scheme until September, is it going to affect the recruiting of new people who are currently looking for a job? Stay put with furlough for a while, and also what options for onboarding would you want to keep online after you've reopened, as opposed to taking everything back live, face to face, side by side, whatever you call it now? But so I guess two questions conflated into one there.
I'm back in the room.
Welcome back. But who's going to go on that?
Want to start with that one, and then we can get Bobby's input as well.
Please.
Sorry,
me?
you want to start? Nope.
I didn't hear the question.
It was James Godwin. I wondered if you wanted.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't work out who you were asking to speak. My apologies.
I got your name right.
Yeah, I think that. So yeah, it was obviously a two-parter. If I do the second part first, if I may, I think that we're now in this world of online communications, and one of the challenges we have, and I suspect everybody on the panel is similar, our properties are reasonably geographically diverse. You know, we've got several properties down in the southwest, south coast, Bristol, and one on the outskirts of London in Richmond. And one of the challenges we expect to face is that sort of central support piece moving around. So one of the good things we can do with the technology in terms of the onboarding is introducing people to some of our senior teams who historically may have been mobile and moving around, can now get to more people because they're going to be online. And I think that would be a really nice addition, which perhaps we didn't have before. We relied heavily on sort of field-based support team or senior team going around. So I think that'll be a shift change, and I'd like to explore that, you know, as we move further forwards. You'll have to forgive me, I've forgotten the first part of the question.
Oh, hang on, I've scrolled down. Hang on a second. Right.
Sorry, Peter.
Okay. The first part really was about the extension of the furlough scheme until September, and how's that impacting on recruiting and on people coming back looking for a job? Are they just staying in their furlough zone for the time being?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we've discovered so far is with more senior roles, sort of what I would call the full-time roles, and I know we were speaking earlier, and Gavin and James were both talking about being more flexible, but for this, I suppose the more traditional full-time roles, we found that harder because people are concerned about leaving sort of secure roles at the moment. I think that problem will dissipate as we go through. But in terms of how that's going to affect, I mean, I'm really, really hopeful that come May, you know, we won't have people on furlough, or certainly June, July, we'll be open and we'll be busy enough to have everybody working that is currently in our group. So I'd like to think that's where we plan to be. So is it going to affect the recruitment over the next 6 months? I don't think so. I don't think it will. And I think especially if we allow, not just allow, but encourage the flexible working approach, I think it'll benefit, and I think it'll benefit everybody, both the employers, the employees, and the guests.
I think that's really evolved as the way things are going to work, this flexible working thing, isn't it? I think it was coming anyway, but in many ways, things have moved forward 10 years in the last year, haven't they? And I do believe that is one of the key things that's going to be a takeaway from the pandemic. It's hard to find positives, but they must be there somewhere. Can I throw in another question, Hayley? I know time presses on, but and this is are any of you engaging in the government Kickstart scheme? As we're a gateway for the scheme, and it seems it's a great opportunity to nurture some homegrown talent. Homegrown talent is what we've always been talking about, and the dearth of. What about the Kickstart? Are you guys getting behind it?
Bobby, do you want to start that one? Is that something?
I can definitely start with that. So we plan to, and we are looking at it currently. So yes, not that we have done it already, but yes, we are definitely planning on getting behind that, along with other aspects as well. It won't, I think, come as any surprise with how I started this about my military connections, that we are already signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, and we're exploring those options as well, because I do think that with some of the other things that we've been saying, there is a whole variety of sources of really good talent that we can actually be looking at for the hospitality industry. And I'm bound to say that as the new girl here as well, that I can take my skills and do it elsewhere in a different sector. But I do firmly believe that. But I think that in order to the Kickstart piece in particular, to actually be able to bring in the younger generation and dispel this whole business about whatever generation number or letter that we're actually calling them at the time, that if we talk to them, we can find out how it is that they actually want to work and see how that then blends with the different generations. And I think that we have an industry where we can cover it all.
And tied in, if you don't mind me, Peter, sort of tying in with that, what Bobby was referencing, we've obviously, I'm sure most of you are aware of a charity called Only a Pavement Away, and they very much are trying to address that there are people from the military no longer in work, there's homeless. Gav, you touched on it before, Gavin, sorry, on the ex-offenders as well. We actually have, again, this pool of people that if their mentality and attitude's right, they absolutely have a place in this business, and that is our grassroots that we can build on.
Absolutely. And there's schemes like, I'm sure you all know about the Clink charity that we're very involved in at the Institute. Tremendous initiative. And like you, Bobby, we've signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, and there is a remarkable source of talent there, isn't there? I think the challenge is helping people make the transition from the military to being in Civvy Street, and but once we've cracked that, again, it's an enormous resource and great opportunity, isn't it? But good. Can I ask one more, which is, I guess, one of the killer questions? When you think back on when you look back on the pandemic, what do you think you're going to see as the positives, if any?
Who wants to go first on that one?
I don't mind. I think there are many, Peter. I think we've reimagined our whole business. You know, our customers were in bricks and mortar pizzerias, and now they're at home, they're in pizzerias. We've thought, well, you know, it starts from how do we survive? And that really does generate a lot of innovative thinking. So I think in terms of the business, there's that. In terms of our team, we try and look at things through the eyes of the guest, the team, and the business, and have a balance there. I think in terms of the team, it's about how do we communicate better. So Facebook Workplace was just one way of doing it, but it really did make us think. And I think someone earlier said about how you could just get that FaceTime with people remotely. And that's been a game changer. We'll never stop. But I think we've got to take that back into the work when they come back, and they may say, actually, I loved this a year ago. Now I'm not loving it so much. I was thinking I want to do this. So, you know, really being very, very close to how engaged our team are that first 3 months of reopening, and just understanding what the challenges might be around travel or working hours or whatever. In terms of our customers, it's a real suck it and see on this, I think, because I think the way people use restaurants, pubs, hotels, cafes may change. Their interaction with technology, maybe their expectations around value. All they've done is buy things from supermarkets and local farm shops and food at home. What does that do for the perception of a pint of beer at £6? Question. And I think we need to be really careful about that. But I think maybe the magic bit, and I think it's really wonderful, is the relationship with our local communities. And I think businesses have done that. I personally am more connected to the local businesses where I live than ever before. And I know that of a lot of the people I know. And I think that's a huge takeaway and a huge win. And let's hope we all keep supporting those things, by the way. And included in that, the pubs and the hotels and the restaurants when they reopen, because we've not been able to do that. But if we've connected the dots between how important local economies are, let's not lose that. Let's really not lose that, because it creates jobs, it creates communities. It's everything we need in a local community. That'll be my takeaway. There's quite a lot there.
If I think it's for me, it's the speed of adapting that you know, I've been in other sectors where you might sweat it a lot with a lot of governance required and getting signatures in triplicate and everything else besides. Whereas I think that we have been in a form when we've started reflecting on the things that we've actually achieved. I have done more in a year than I probably have in 3 or 4 in other sectors. That might get me the sack from some jobs I've been in before, thinking that I was going too slowly. But just the speed with which you've done it, because you don't worry too much. You just give it a go, and if it doesn't work, you don't do it. You try something else. And I think that's a real good takeaway for us, that we've got to keep going like that, not relentlessly, because you need some rest and you need the space to reflect and evaluate, but just giving things a go, and it's okay if you then adapt it later or whatever it might be. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and that we should all pat ourselves on the back a bit for when we actually think about what we have actually achieved.
Yeah, and I'd follow that up with just before New Year, I was having a chat with my dad, and I said, "Oh God, I can't wait for this year to end. It's been a horrific year." And he just turned around and said, "But just think of what you've learned from it." And actually, when you look at it like that, you know, we've learned so much as a business about what we can do and what's not necessary, and most importantly about our team. You know, we've seen some of the best behaviour showing themselves in the crisis, and you know what we've learned about I think you really see people's true natures in a crisis, and actually it's shown us we've got some phenomenal people on board, and you know, just like you said, Bobby, that we've been able to adapt quickly, and they've felt that they could do that, and they've sort of stood up and taken ownership of the problem. And you know, we've definitely going to come through this stronger. You know, there's 101 examples I could give, but you know, it's just as a hindsight, and saying now 4 weeks away from opening, you know, I'd never wanted COVID, but you know, we've learned so much from it that actually we're going to be in a lot stronger position for it.
I've always believed that you learn more in recessions than when times are good, for sure. Yeah. Okay, Hayley, could I hand over to you to do sort of the closing question, and then I'll just do a quick wrap up of what's going on soon.
Sure, yeah. Of course, thank you very much, Peter, and thanks everyone for chipping in with their questions there. I think that was a really good discussion point. I have one final question, and I'm going to tie in another theme for this month and go for a question to Bobby here. Just tying in with International Women's Month, what would your advice be as a female leader? Touching on what even the guys on the panel have mentioned today, just like getting more women into these career opportunities and being part of hospitality. What would your advice be?
So we actually did 7 days in our hotel with what would be the one thing that you would tell your younger self, and I still maintain this, which is I have moved around industries, and I do it because I want to stretch myself and I want to learn something. So I also now attempt to do it in the way that don't do it expecting applause, because the person who's going to pat you on the back most is yourself. So rely on yourself first, and know what it is that you can actually do and achieve. And I think that many of us have got transferable skills, but coming into this hospitality industry, that all the things that we've said about flexible working hours, whether you are working, you know, you have children, whatever it is that you're actually doing, this industry can cater for you. You're a customer on one side of it, you can be a great worker on the other, whatever walk of life you actually come from. And you know, 2 years in, one of them being virtual, I am a firm believer that my skills have been able to be brought into this. And it doesn't matter what level you actually come in at, there is something that you can stretch yourself, both up, going from progression, but I also think it's the breadth and depth that you actually get for all of the things that you actually get to do whilst you're in the hospitality industry.
Fantastic. That's everything from me, Peter. I would like to thank everyone for their time. I don't know if you have anything else to say, but it's been a pleasure being on the call today.
Can I just thank you all? It's been a superb session. I've really enjoyed it. Lovely to meet you all, and I can't wait to visit. I don't know if I want to come to your places first. I've got to see my barber first, but then I'm going to be out and dreadful. Then I'm going to be out and enjoying myself again, I'm sure. And I'm sure many of us are. I agree with one of the things you said. I think the hospitality industry has gained credibility amongst the broader public this year. I think partly because we put forward a very good case. I think Kate Nichols has done a brilliant job on our behalf, as have the BII and BBPA. But also, I think people have realised just how much they miss us when they can't come to us, and I think that's an absolutely key thing. So I look forward to seeing the future, because I think it's going to be good. Can I just give a very quick plug to some upcoming events in the Institute? On the 22nd of March, our Midlands branch are having an informal catch-up. So the link's on the website. If you live in that area, in that region, just want to drop in and say hi, I know they'd love to see you. And same day, 22nd of March at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Southern branch are running a web call or webinar, which anybody can join, on effective ways to increase spending per head. And they're looking at upselling and also at revenue management. So that's an interesting one. 23rd of March, PMS is changing, property management systems are changing. Are you taking advantage of the changes? There's a lot of new technology going on there in terms of, actually interpreting market intel, and so kick into that. 24th of March again, in the afternoon, the Thames Valley branch are running a webinar which kind of talks of some things that you guys have been talking about today, which is innovating in a pandemic. And I've no doubt there's going to be a lot of change coming about from that. So again, if that flicks your switch, 24th of March, the Thames Valley branch, again, anybody can drop in because it's a web thing. 25th of March, so what makes you think you're accessible? Now, disability and disabled access is massively important these days. Our previous chairman was a big champion of it. And Tourism for All, which is the charity that focuses on making your properties accessible and helping businesses understand that the market is going to be a good webinar then. And 25th of March again, the London branch have got a drop in for new members. It's a 6 o'clock thing, and the idea is you have a virtual glass of wine with them and just meet some people there and get networking. So that's what's going on in the Institute. Thursday morning, as usual, we've got a coffee drop in, so anybody comes into that. But Hayley, I'm going to go through it all. Hayley, James, Bobby, and Gavin, thank you so much. Great webinar this afternoon, really interesting, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and experience. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we'll do what we can with those afterwards. And thanks very much indeed, everybody, for being here today. Goodbye now.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.